Zoe, I'm going to make you a savoury pudding the old-fashioned way. I'm going to use a meat, an Australian meat kangaroo, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Interesting.
But I'm going to make suet pastry, which is what we would steam to make a pudding. It's an old-fashioned way of putting it together, but it starts with 350 grams of plain flour into the Magimix like that. So make sure you get all the flour out,
Not
otherwise...
what it starts with that I'm worried about, it's what it ends with.
This is what you mean, isn't it?
That's what I mean.
This is suet, which is basically the fat from around the kidney of the beef animal, which is a lovely animal, delicious animal. But this fat is what they put in Christmas puddings. Yeah. This is why Nana's Christmas pudding always tasted the best, because it had this in it.
And my Nana did make a pudding very similar to this, and she called it their war puddings. It was really full of energy, basically, and it would last them for long periods of time. But we don't need that anymore.
There we go, packed with energy. That's what we want to hear.
Unnecessary.
Now, your suet you'll get from your local butcher. Just give him a bit of a nudge and a wink and he'll mince it up for you. Keep it in the freezer. It's best to work with suet when it's really cold or frozen. It just holds together really well. So I've got my teaspoon of vinegar in there just to give it a bit of sharpness. And I've got water here. I've got about 200 mils of water for this, but I'll add a little bit of it and then we'll turn this on and then we'll add it at the end. So we turn it on, let it turn around with our dough-making attachment on the Magimix and see what happens. Look at that. This doesn't take long at all. It just goes round and around, and every 30 seconds or so, I'll just stop it and give it a bit of a wipe down. That's right. I was going to let you do that, sorry. But you can do this by hand. The old-fashioned way was to actually get it with a knife and chop it on a board. So the suet just chops into the flour. A little bit more water in there, and all of a sudden, it'll just come together, which it almost about is. There we go. It starts to ball up into a nice, tidy dough. And I love the pinkness of the suet. Look at that. It's just rolling itself, and it comes off nice and clean. Turn that off. Look at that. It doesn't take very long. And you let
doesn't take long at all.
You let the machinery do all the work. And I'll take the blade
it does
out.
help when you've got good quality machinery. It makes life a lot easier.
There we go. Now, that's just a tiny little bit sticky now. So what I do is dust it with a little bit of flour. And we want to rest our dough. It's really important when you make a dough that you rest it. So what I've got are these lovely little glad bags. And I'll open this up. And if you can pop that dough...
Good way to do it. I like that.
Straight into a bag. You don't have to worry about cling film or anything. There we go. Seal it up and put it aside. And we'll come back to that later. Now, Zoe, I've got my kangaroo. I love using kangaroo. It's really lean meat. It is. It's really tasty meat.
Really high protein meat as well.
And you can see the meat is beautiful and red. It's like game meat. You want to think about it, it's like venison.
Absolutely.
So
it's got a very good flavour to it, and you can cook it so many different ways as well.
Now, Zoe, what I'm going to get you to do, I've got a leek, cut it down the outside and cut it into little squares, a stick of celery and a carrot. I want cubes or dice. Okay. I'm going to get my kangaroo and slice it. I'm going to do cubes as well. And it's really easy to cut up. I'm just amazed at the colour of it. This is the perfect lean meat.
Well, it's got a really high protein content in it, and it's also got a good iron content in it. So if you're someone who needs to get your iron levels up, I mean, it's something I'm really conscious of being pregnant. I've got to maintain a good level of iron in my diet. This is a great meat to eat.
That's the stuff to eat. OK, I've got my pan here and I've got some olive oil. There we go, nice big splush of olive oil. What I'm going to do is brown off the meat so it's nice and caramelised and tasty. I'll turn that up and put a little bit of salt on top of my meat.
It wouldn't be an Adrian dish without the salt on the meat.
Salt loves meat and meat loves salt. The two go together so well. I give that a bit of a stir around like this. Now, this dish you could do with lamb, you could do it with beef, you could do it with pork.
The other nice thing about kangaroo, it's not a really expensive meat. So once you start using it, it's a really good everyday meat to use.
Oh, look at all those veggies. I'll just smash this garlic because we're going to throw this in a second.
This is the counterbalance to the suet. My theory is 1/3 of your diet coming from protein, whether it be animal or vegetable protein, and the rest of it coming from veggies and good quality carbohydrates and good quality fats in the diet. And that is a really well-balanced diet.
That's the way to do it. I wasn't listening, but I'll just agree with you anyway. Now, into the pan I'll go with some leek, some carrot. Just throw it all in. I just want to sweat it down nicely. There we go, throw it in. Because kangaroo's a sort of gamey meat, we can sweeten it up a little bit. And what I've got is some apples. So I'm just going to take the first bit off here. And Zoe, what I want you to do is cut it into dice as well, just like that, and then straight through there like that. I'm leaving the skin on.
I noticed that.
I noticed that you would like the skin on, and I'll just give that a bit of a stir.
Not really winning any brownie points this way, but anyway.
Now, to that I'm going to add a little bit of butter as well.
See, this is what I mean.
Just loading it up with flavour, that's what I'm doing. Because I've got a lot of fat in there, some oil and butter, I want to actually soak that up with some flour because I want this to thicken up.
OK.
So I've got some lovely flour here, which is, plain flour.
I thought maybe draining it off, something like that.
the butter and the flour and everything is going to make a beautiful gravy to soak up all that stuff. There's probably about 1/4 cup of flour in there, and I just stir it around. This is the old-fashioned way that we used to make these sauces, and you can see that the flour's taken up all that butter and the oil and the juices. Flavour. Now, I've got some ketchup mayonnaise here, which might sound a little bit crazy, but it's nice and thick and syrupy. It adds a great colour, so it will darken the sauce. It also seasons it as well. In all goes some stock. Now, I'll just do this slowly, so I make sure I get the right amount of stock to the right amount of flour and butter, which is also called a roux. If you're ever reading a recipe book and they mention a roux, this is the sort of thing they mean. You can see that's thickening up nicely. Just a little bit more stock in there.
Okay.
I think this will take about 1 cup of stock. You know, and if you didn't have any stock, you could use some water or the stock from the tap if you wanted to. Now, Zoe, if you can chop that parsley there, because we're just about ready to roll out that pastry. Look at that, that's thickening up nicely. Just a touch more stock in there. Oh, I reckon that's perfect.
You ready for this parsley?
I'm ready for the parsley. We'll throw it in now, and we'll just let this simmer very gently while we get our pastry rolled out. Look at that. That's ready to make into a beautiful suet pie. This pastry is rested for, well, just a couple of minutes. That's what I like about the suet pastry. Perfect. It's always a good idea to let it rest for, you know, half an hour or so, but, you know, that's the beauty of this pastry. You get straight into it and off you go.
Is it because it's got such a high fat content that it does work so well?
It's just the nature of the suet that allows it to be easy to work with.
He means the fat. I love it how Adrian finds just one more use for beef.
That's a perfect one. Well, you've got to use every part of the animal, just a little dusting of flour. I'm looking for, you know, about 1/2 centimetre or so in thickness. Now, what I'll do is I'll just cut that piece off there.
Okay.
Into a round, and if you pass me that bowl over there,
yeah.
I'm going to put this straight into the bowl. Just gently push it down with your fingers all the way down, and you want to have a fair bit of overhang because we've got to join the top to the bottom. There we go, look at that.
You're making that little cocoon, that little pudding.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, we're just going to hot load here, another one of my favourite words, straight into here. I think I've put way too many veggies in here, Zoe. I knew when you were cutting them, I'm thinking, oh, I've given you too many veggies to chop, so I've got a little bit left over, but we'll make a pie out of that later on.
Sure, you can work out a way to use that extra.
There we go. Just cut that off there. And what I do with this, just give it a bit of a stretch, fold it over the top here.
Okay.
And then, with my knife, I just cut around the outside here. I want to have about 2 or 3 centimetres or so of overhang. What you do is you get the pastry and just sort of pinch it around like this. Look at that.
You can sort of tuck in all the little extra part that's spilling out.
That's right. And we might have a little bit spill out when we steam it, but you know what? I reckon that'll come out really well. Now, I've got some baking paper, and over there I've got an elastic band. See that elastic band?
that.
You're thinking, what's that for? Once again, scrunch this up, straight over the top like this.
OK, so it's like a little shower cap going on top.
That's how we hold it down with good old lacquer band. There's plenty of them lying around. Now, this is going to go into my steamer here for about 2 hours.
Right.
It'll tick over, I'll check the bottom of it, make sure there's plenty of water in there so it stays steaming. Into the steamer we go. Look at that, watch your fingers. On goes the lid. We'll clean all this up, and in 2 hours' time, we're going to have some beautiful kangaroo suet pudding. You can smell when it's ready, Zoe, can't you? But I also have a bit of a feel, and when I feel the pastry's quite firm...
It's really risen up, hasn't it?
It puffs up a bit.
Okay.
I'll just carefully pull this out. Be careful, this is really hot, it's been steaming away. Take the lacquer band off. You can see it's nice and cooked, it's firm. So what I'll do is I'll grab my plate like this, and I'll just quickly flip it over. And this is the bit, I'm just hoping this comes out. So I'll just... give it a bit of it. Oh, there we go. Wow. Came out beautifully. Look at that. What about if I just cut it open from the top here, and we'll see if we can have a look. Oh, all that lovely goodness in there. Now, I'm just going to serve this up, Joe. Just give you a little bit of pastry like this. Okay. In the bottom of the bowl here, we'll scoop out some of this lovely goodness in there. Look at that. Kangaroo, lots of veggies. Oh, fantastic. I'm going to put a few peas on there as well for you, Zoe.
That's the greenery.
There we go.
Like that.
My favourite gravy. Just the regular kind. Look at that. Have a taste of that. It just smells sensational, and the pastry, it's such a soft, delicate pastry. Oh. You gotta love that.
It's very similar to one my grandma used to make. It's kind of one of those dishes that needs to be cold, and you need to be using a lot of energy.
We'll go for a run after this. But I think it's a cracker of a pudding. Sweet puddings and savoury puddings, easy as, and delicious.